Hi and welcome to a training video with the Northeast Nebraska Creation Station. Hi, I'm Newcore Dave. Today we're going to talk about using SVG files with some of the equipment in your creation stations. An SVG file is a scalable vector graphic file. Essentially what it is the result you get when you take a image file and you boil it down or reduce it to just an outline or a line drawing. This file format is going to be useful with your 3D printer software as well as with your CNC software. And that's because those two softwares don't allow us to import image such as a JPEG or a PNG. So let's get started with our discussion. First of all, where do we get an SVG file that we can use with our 3D printer or CNC machine? Well, the first and best place that you could go to find a scalable vector graphic file is to create one yourself. And you can do this using software such as Illustrator or CorelDRAW, Inkscape, or even GIMP. So if your school is using those softwares or one of those softwares, go ahead and check out and see if it can export your artwork or your creation as an SVG format. So another place that you can find an SVG file if you didn't create one yourself is to find a pre-existing one out there on the internet. So I'm going to head up to Google and see if I have any luck finding a downloadable SVG file. I'm going to do a quick search. I'm interested in a rhinoceros, so I'm going to type in rhino and then the file format I'm looking for, SVG. I'll head over to the images results in Google. And the first thing I want you to notice when I'm getting my results is that a lot of these results look like a silhouette or a line drawing, and that's because that is what an SVG file is. It's essentially an outline or a line drawing. Let's check out and see if any of these images that I'm taking a look at are actually downloadable SVGs. So I'm just going to start with the first one, and if I select this image and I go to save it, so I'll do save image as, I want to check what file format it is saving as, and it's showing me here that this is a PNG image, so it's not actually an SVG file, and that's not what I'm after. So let's try another one, maybe this second one. If I do a save image as with that one, again, this one's a JPEG, so it's an image file, not an actual SVG. So your results on this are going to be kind of hit and miss. Let me check out this one. And if I do a right click on this one, sure enough, finally I found one that is in the native SVG format. So I could go ahead and name this, and let's go ahead and save that one, and maybe I can use that later in my CNC software and my 3D printer software. So there's one option, is see if you can find an SVG file that is downloadable from the internet. Now, you're not always going to be able to find an SVG file that's downloadable. What you can do is start with a JPEG or a PNG, some kind of image format, and then go online and find an online converter. So let's do that. This time I'm going to search for, let's search for my favorite, the Sasquatch. And when I get my Sasquatch results from Google and I go to the images, I want you to take a look at my results here, and you'll notice that a lot of these are photographs, more complex images. And remember, I'm out to create an SVG, and an SVG was that real basic silhouette or line drawing outline format. So none of these are going to make good candidates for conversion. So I might be able to increase my odds of finding a nice image that would convert well if I do maybe the word silhouette right behind there. So I'm going to force it to look for silhouettes. And now I've got results that look a lot similar to those ones that I did when I searched for the Rhino SVG. A lot of these would make wonderful conversions and would be pretty cool on the 3D printer or on the CNC machine. I did want to point out a couple on here that would not be good candidates. This one right here, because it is a two-color image, is not going to make a good conversion, because when you convert to an SVG, you are going to get two colors. You're going to get black and you're going to get white. It's going to take almost every color and change that to black. So what the results would be with this one would just be a solid black rectangle, and I wouldn't see Sasquatch inside of there. The same with this image. Now this one over here that's showing orange and white, that would change to black and white. So this one would be a good candidate. I'm going to find an image that I would like to convert. So I know, I'll make it a little easier for myself, and I'm going to get rid of almost all of these colored images. I can do that up above here with one of the image tools in Google. And when you click on tools, you'll get your color options. And under color, I'm going to tell it, just show me the ones that are black and white. And now I don't have all of those colors in there to confuse me. I kind of like this one because it's more of a sassy Sasquatch. So let's go ahead and grab Sassy Sasquatch, and I'm going to do a save image as, let's call this Sassy. And I'm saving it as a JPEG format. That's fine because what we're going to do is we're going to convert that over to SVG format. So I'll do a quick save. Make sure you pay attention to where you put that so that you can go find it again later. Let's go do that conversion now. On your desktop, you should have a shortcut that shows images to SVG. It's kind of this red and white circular one. If you don't have that, that's okay. You can just do a Google search, and we're going to do image to SVG. And with this image to SVG converter, I'm looking for the one that's called Convertio. That seems to be the one that we have the most luck with. So here it is right here, Convertio. I'm going to go ahead and head over there. When you come into this one, it should be kind of a red and white interface. You'll see right in this gray box, it's telling you what you have dialed up to do, and that's to convert a JPEG or an image into an SVG format. Over here in the red box, I'll just click on the From Computer. Now I can go and find my JPEG file. Whether I'm looking in the icons, I can see that it's an image here. If I hover over it, it says JPG. Or if I have it set for details, I can see the name and then also see the file extension here. So I'm going to grab that one that I just saved. It'll upload, and then the button that's red will be the convert button. I'll go ahead and tell it to start the conversion. You could convert more than one file at a time. I tend just to do one at a time to make sure everything's going well. When the conversion is complete, you can see now it's sassy, but the extension is SVG, so I'll come over here to the blue button. I'm going to hit download. I should see it start to download in the corner. I'll make sure that the download is complete, and now I have an SVG sassy file. I'm going to go ahead and head out just to double check that, and I know this one is saving in my downloads, and here's the original JPEG. I can see that it is one. If I hover over this new one, you'll see that the file extension is SVG. And again, if you're looking at the details view, you can see that I had the original JPEG file here, and now with the conversion, it has saved that as an SVG file. So we're ready to go and import this. I'm going to head out to my TinkerCAD. And I've opened up a blank document. I'm ready to import that SVG. So I'll hit my import button in the upper right. It says choose a file. It's only going to let me choose files that are compatible. So if I try to bring in an image, it'll error me out, but it will let me bring in that SVG. So I've gone to my downloads and I found that file that we just converted. I'm going to tell it that's the one that I want. This one is telling me that this SVG is actually too big for my work plane, and that's okay because I can just come down to the scale button, and here I can tell it instead of bringing it in at 100%, I'm going to try a lower scale, and I'm just going to tell it 10%. And let's see if that was reduced enough to bring this in. So I'll tell it to import. Doesn't have that error anymore, so I'm good to go, and I'll tell it to import that. Now, sometimes these files take a little bit of time to reconstitute in your work plane in TinkerCAD. As long as you see this green in the lower left that's showing you that it's working on that it's thinking about it, you're good to go. Just let it go, be patient, and eventually you're going to get an actual three-dimensional object based on your image that you converted will import into the work plane. So let's give this just a second. And there we go. Sassy Sasquatch has popped in, and you'll notice that this is actually now been converted into a three-dimensional object instead of an image. Because it's a three-dimensional object, when I select it in TinkerCAD, I have all my grips, so I can do my manipulations and make them taller, make it wider, and I can even grab and extrude it up and pick it up in space like this. So you can do any of the conversions that you are used to doing in your TinkerCAD with any of your geometric forms with an SVG. You can bring in as many SVGs as you would like. You don't have to just limit to yourself to one, so you can create more complex objects by bringing in additional SVGs. With this, it's able to be sent now to the 3D printer, but you can do additional modifications. So I'm going to grab me a cylinder, make this a background for it, a little shorter. And now you can see I've got Sassy Sasquatch sitting up on top of my disk, and I could send this out to the 3D printer. I don't like the fact that it's not centered in that disk, so if I select all the objects that I want to center and come up to my alignment tool, it will drop down the nodes that let me line objects up. I'm going to hit this center one so it's more centered this way, and then the side center so it's centered vertically as well. And there you go, I've got a nice 3D printable object. One thing I do want to point out before we move over to CNC is don't forget that these SVG files that you've brought in, they function just like any other form in the Tinker universe. So I'm going to select my SVG Sasquatch, and instead of having it be a solid, I'll turn it into a hole. And what that'll let me do is if I group these two objects together now, it's actually going to cut out that, and I have a nice cutout through that's more like a stencil. So don't forget you can manipulate these SVG objects in any way that you normally would an object inside a TinkerCAD. I said that these SVGs are also usable on with your CNC software. That's the Carbide Create. So I'm going to head over to Carbide Create and let's take a look at what we can do with an SVG in this software. Here, just like in TinkerCAD, I've got my import button, so I'm going to head over to import an external file. I'll have to remember where I saved that SVG. It was in my downloads, and here it is. So I'll go ahead and tell it that that's the file that I'd like to bring in. And you can see now this SVG has been brought in, and it's all one continuous line because that's what an SVG is. With this SVG, we can manipulate it the same way we do any other graphics inside of our Carbide Create. I'm going to go ahead and scale this down a little bit. Seems to be a little bit bigger, so let's try half size. And that looks like it's going to fit a little bit better on my work plane. Nope, I need to go even smaller. So let's scale it one more time. There we go. That looks better. All right, let's add a quick toolpath to this so that we can see what it's going to look like. I'll use the smallest blade and a contour. Let's go ahead and have no offset and save that toolpath. And I'm going to do a simulation and see what this would look like on a piece of wood. And there you go. You can see that the bit is going to follow the outline. And I'll have a nice tracing of my Sassy Sasquatch. One more. Let's go see if we were to fill that in with a pocket instead. And take a look at what that simulation would be. And so this might take a little bit longer because there sure are a lot of lines that the machine code is going to have to follow. I may have reached the capacity for my computer. Nope, there we go. And now it's showing me the results. And you can see that this one would leave me quite a deep cut through there. So there's a little primer on SVG files and how you can work with them in both TinkerCAD and in Carbide Create. One interesting note before we go, with your vinyl software, that's the Vinyl Master, we also do something very similar, but the conversion of turning from an image into a line is done inside of the software instead of online. And that's done, as you might know, with your vectorize button. So anytime you're dealing with Vinyl Master, you are doing the exact same thing, taking an image and then converting it into an outline. But in this software, they don't use a online converter for that. They go ahead and use the vectorize. So I'll grab my Sassy image and bring that in. And here, when I do the vectorize and I'm tracing, this is exactly what we were just doing online for TinkerCAD and for Carbide Create, but it's built into the Vinyl Master software. So there you go. Go out and create wonderful things and have a great time using SVG files.